Here we are today with 1998's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the Criterion release of this film, which of course was directed by Terry Gilliam and was based on a novel by Hunter S. Thompson, who is one of the preeminent writers from the 60s and 70s and 80s, really. Fascinating man. He wrote the book Hell's Angels, which was sort of an accounting of his time hanging out with the Hells Angels, and it's a terrific read. I highly recommend it, as is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Now, this film version is a rather interesting one in that it apparently had been a project that had been sort of languishing over time because of arguments over the screenplay. And at one time, Alex Cox was involved in writing the screenplay and was supposed to have directed it, but eventually he ended up falling out of favor with the producers, and Terry Gilliam took over and he rewrote the screenplay, and this is what we get. And I think it's a great film. It's certainly a very good example of how there are some instances where you just simply can't avoid voiceover, and I think hearing the voiceover, the thoughts of the lead character is important in this instance, because much of his musings simply cannot be depicted just through sound and vision alone and through action. I feel like there's just simply no way around it, and I feel as though the voiceover really adds to the experience. It's a movie that's very strange. It's filled with all of the expected Terry Gilliam flourishes. Nearly every angle of every scene is sort of at that Dutch angle. There's not a straight and perfectly composed shot in the entire film. But I think that fits within the framework of the story itself. And of course, Johnny Depp, I think, did a fantastic job playing the role. I thought he was much more effective than Bill Murray in Where the Buffalo Roam, and I think that's largely due to his access to Hunter S. Thompson. Apparently, he spent a fair amount of time with Hunter in advance of the filming, really learning his cadence and mannerisms and affectations, and Hunter apparently really approved of it. And of course, later, Johnny would go on and play Hunter S. Thompson again in Rum Punch, which is where I believe he famously met Amber Heard, and we all know what happened after that. But I don't particularly care for that film as much. I thought it was entertaining, but I think Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is definitely a good film. Criterion has done a terrific job, as per usual, with the transfer and the supplements, including some really interesting audio interviews about sort of the history of the production and the sort of push and pull tug of war going on vis-a-vis who was going to ultimately get screenwriting credits. I think it's a great film. I actually saw this in theaters on the campus of the University of Wisconsin opening weekend, and really enjoyed it. It's a strange film, and is in some ways a really interesting companion piece to Requiem for a Dream or even Drugstore Cowboy. You could argue that it glamorizes drug use a little more. I don't think that it does. I think it just makes it as crazy as it in all likelihood was. I mean, Hunter S. Thompson was clearly living a very, very dangerous lifestyle in his peak drug days. And I find it interesting that, he would just basically walk around blasted on various drugs and psychedelics, and then just record his musings and then play the recordings back when he was sitting down at his typewriter to write. It was almost as though he would just go into the depths of, the depths of anarchy and entropy in an effort to sort of pull out some greater truths. And I think he largely succeeded in that regard, but it was definitely a task that was not without peril. He's lucky that he didn't OD, I'm sure, on numerous occasions. So with that, I would just say that the transfer looks great. There are a couple of moments in the film that you can tell it probably could stand a new 4K restoration, but as it stands, I think it looks really good. It's in my view at least, a film that was giving some real loving care by Criterion, as they so often do. And again, the supplements are just terrific. It really gives you the entire sordid affair that led up to the production of this film. So on that note, I would just say give this film a watch if you haven't, and if you have, seek out this Criterion release. I really think it's definitely a shelf-worthy addition, and again, another example of Terry Gilliam's sort of eccentric rather, sensibilities, and when he can put those to good use and make a film like this, I think the world is a better place because of it. So on that note, take care. Please stay safe out there, everyone. Be kind and keep watching strange cinema.